Let us begin. I'm calling to order the
Recording in progress.
Federated. Who are we? The Federated Retirement and Healthcare Trust Board meeting of January 19th. And we will call the roll. Vice Kelleher.
Here.
Trustee Linder. Trustee Linder. Okay, not here for the moment. Trustee Avasti.
Here.
And I am here. So I believe that does form a quorum. Right. And let us move forward to the orders of the day. I understand we will not be hearing agenda item, and I forget the exact agenda item under new business. If we could scroll down quickly.
6D, I believe.
6D, thank you. We will not be hearing item 6D to this month. We will postpone it to next month. And we also have a time certain item at 10 o'clock, and we will try to take a brief 5-minute break before 10 o'clock. And we would like to ask all trustees to remain on this call when the meeting concludes for the various subcommittee meetings. So with that, do I have a motion to accept the orders of the day?
So motion by Trustee Kelleher.
We have a motion from Trustee Kelleher. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second from Vice Chair Jennings. Any discussion? Any public comments? I see a hand raised from Brad. Do you have a comment on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't have any comment on the item, but I do have a comment. Is that the items that we're addressing right now?
No, we will come to that shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Okay, so with no further discussion, we'll have a vote. How do we vote on accepting orders of the day? Vice Chair Jennings?
Aye.
Trustee Kelleher?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
And is Trustee Linder now present?
I'm present and I vote aye.
And he votes aye, and I vote aye as well. So orders of the day are accepted. Do we need to waive sunshine on any items? I don't believe so. So then we will have a vote on the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
So motion by Trustee Kelleher.
We have a motion from Trustee Keller. Any seconds?
Second.
A second from Trustee Linder. Any discussion? Any public comments? We will vote. Vice Chair Jennings?
Aye.
Trustee Kelleher?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye. Trustee
Avasti?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The consent calendar is passed. We will begin the calendar with a closed session matter, but I think I'd like to take any public comment at this time. Any members of the public may comment on items not included on the agenda, provided that the matter is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Members of the public who wish to provide comment at this time may do so by raising your hand in Zoom. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. In addition, public comments on listed agenda items will be taken when the agenda items are heard. Is there anyone wishing to speak in general public comment?
That's you. That's just me.
I heard someone speaking, but it was very muted.
I think Brad has his hand up.
Okay, I thought I heard someone else speaking, but Brad, if you wish to address the board in the public comment section, and staff, please begin the timer for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Horowitz, and Happy New Year to you and the rest of the board. And just for identification purposes, I am a taxpayer and happen to be a beneficiary in the Federated Retirement Fund. what I do want to comment on is over the times that you're aware that I do speak to the board, most of the time I don't get any responses. This method of communicating with the board, who I might add are supposed to be fiduciaries, is awkward at best because you don't get a response. So you all sit there stoically. I don't even know if you're listening or drinking coffee or looking on your cell phones, whatever. However, I don't wish to insult you, but I am, as you can probably hear in my voice, very frustrated with the communication that goes with, in this case, myself as a taxpayer paying into the fund and also as a beneficiary. So I would like to ask again that maybe your board counsel not sit there and shield you from responding to my questions, and would like to again offer my invitation to any one of you, any one of the trustees, to sit down and at least communicate so I can get a better understanding with how this fund is managed. Question I have is any of your, is the portfolio engaged or any of your money managers engaged in ESG type of investment strategy? And all of you should know what that is. And again, also would like to, again, set up a time to where you could be in a public forum or whatever, to where we can have a meaningful back and forth question and answer with the trustees. And I would sincerely appreciate that. And again, thank you for allowing me to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Imamura. As you're probably aware, we, by law, can only address items that are on the public agenda. And we take very seriously the admonitions of our legal counsel. None of us wants to end up in jail. So we are bound by law to accept comments, general comments, but we can only act on items that are on the agenda. But you asked some legitimate questions, and we can possibly consider agendizing them for future meetings. If you have specific questions, you speak of wanting to have some type of dialogue, I think it would be best personally if you could articulate those questions in writing and submit them through the normal email channels, and then we can endeavor to answer those specific questions. So thank you so much for your comments and for your participation in the plan. So I believe the next item on the agenda is closed session. Did we remove that from the agenda? Because I don't seem to see it here. Scrolling back up the other way. Do we not have a closed session item to hear?
We do, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for getting to the correct part of the agenda. So at this time, we'd like to move into closed session, and I believe staff will move us individually into the closed Zoom meeting room. So please. especially. All right, I'm going to, can't quite see everybody's names. Let me see if that's the case. Trustee Kelleher, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. All right, looks like we have all trustees back. Let's move to the next agenda item. And we approve the, we can move, we're going to hear item 1.1 at 10 o'clock sharp. We can move through the consent calendar, which has been approved. Continuing forward to item number 3, death and survivorship. We will have a moment of silence for those who have served the city and who have passed. Okay, thank you. So moving forward to the next agenda item, please. Number 4, investments, an oral update from the CIO. Mr. Polani?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no agenda items under the investment section this morning, but I do want to give, as I usually do, preliminary performance estimates as of January 17th. These come from Makita, and want to remind the board, as always, these are unaudited numbers. So as of January 17th, fiscal year to date, the pension plan was up 3.9%, and the healthcare trust was up 4.76%. And this was as of 2 days ago, so it does not include the steep drops of yesterday and this morning.
Mhm.
Oh. Not good.
Yeah, a couple of painful days for sure. But anyway, this is just, who knows what's going to happen between now and June 30th. But at least this is to, give you a sense for where we are fiscal year to date. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Picking the day to report this is sometimes very important. Are there in fact any questions from trustees? Or are there any hands raised from the members of the public? Okay, thank you. We'll move forward to agenda item 5A, discussion and action on topics for the joint meeting between the boards, both boards and the city council. Mr. Pena, are you going to introduce this subject?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chair. I know, I believe I saw this morning Carolyn Gibson from the Office of Employment Relations. She is here, I believe, to speak on the item. They reminded us, our office, about the joint meeting of the board of the city council. So I will turn it over to Carolyn in a second, but I just wanted to just remind you all, first, we did discuss this issue a few months back in the late, in the fall, sometime September, October. And we also included, in addition to the memo from the city, we provided you with copies of the last 2 board agendas for the last 2 joint meetings that you have with the city council. In the first one was October 16, 2020. The second was September 30th, 2021. And you may recall that originally this meeting take place in the September-October month, but it was delayed this past year because of the fact that, as it transpired, the city went through a mayor change. As you know, we have a new mayor for the city of San Jose, and about half, if not more, of the new city council you will deal with when you have this joint meeting. So with that in mind, we delayed the joint meeting to later in the year. And so just wanted to remind you of that. The discussion here is for you to provide us with potential topics that we may want to discuss at that meeting, for which we have yet to schedule a day and a time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Caroline. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, board. My name is Carolyn Gibson. I'm a senior executive analyst in the Office of Employee Relations. Just to tack on to some of the things that Roberto mentioned, we're still trying to plan this meeting. It'll take place during a study session. I believe we're looking at dates in February and March. It'll be a joint meeting with the two boards and the city council. In the Police and Fire Retirement Board, some of the topics that they suggested were the risk tolerance of the plans, asset allocations. Our previous topic, excuse me, have been asset allocation, pension obligations. At the Police and Fire Retirement Board meeting, they talked about doing kind of a general overview, taking into account that there are several new members on the council, talking about what it is you do, how do you do it, how do you maintain performance, etc. What we'll do is then take the input from both boards, come up with a draft agenda, and then that will be discussed at a rules committee meeting, and then we'll present you with the final agenda. So Roberto, if I've left off anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to you, board, to discuss possible topics.
No, I think you are correct on the information. It is a brand new council, so that certainly has an impact on possible topics of discussion. Thank you, Caroline, for the information, and I'll turn it over to the chair so that the board can discuss the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pena and Ms. Gibson. And so February, March is the rough target of when we may see this meeting. Okay, great. Trustees, are there any questions, any suggested topics for this annual joint meeting between both boards and the city council?
One thing I recommend, and I think Police and Fire kind of touched on it, but I think it's, these are new council members, and a number of them do not have an investing background in many ways. And pension is very confusing to some people. And there's different approaches that you can take away from this, right? So I think as the city sponsor, and one thing they're very concerned with is the unfunded liability. And I think if we can maybe talk about that or have a very simplistic overview and the sensitivity of that to changes, to investment changes, to COLA changes, to other, aspects, and how, smoothing and how we look at that overall, to asset allocations, to the discount rate. Just a couple slides, keeping it simple, keeping it in layman language, okay? But if we can give that an overview, because I can tell you that's politicized. And I think it would be a great opportunity to depoliticize that and offer a concise overview.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Jennings. Any other comments or insights or suggestions?
Chair, I don't see the, this is Councilmember Davis. I don't see the ability to raise my hand. Can't figure out.
The chair recognizes you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you. I concur with everything Julie said, and Roberto, I know you have a plan to meet with the new council members. I don't know if you'll have the chance to meet with the appointees before the study session, but whatever your curriculum is, I would suggest that it bears repeating. I was on this I was on this committee for a year before I fully understood all the ins and outs of what the Federated Board did and what the implications were for the city as the sponsor and the city's budget, and the difference between police and fire, which comes all out of the general fund, and Federated, which doesn't come all out of the general fund. So I agree, we want to keep it simple, and I would also just kind of put a plug in for Roberto, even if you think you've told them, I wouldn't keep things the agenda just because of that, because there are 4 new council members now. There will be 6 by the time, which is a majority. So those of us who have been on the council for a long time can bear with that repetition. And I think I'm the only one I know I'm the only one who's been on this board for 6 years. Everyone else, Pam's only been on police and fire, I think 4, and everyone else has not touched this more than once or twice a year. So it's perfectly acceptable, I think, and desirable to do the basics as the main part of the meeting.
I absolutely agree. Councilmember Davis, thank you very much for your comments. I completely agree with you. I know the city, I have in the past worked with the city. I was not able to do that this year because I was not in town, but I know Jennifer Chambry met with the new council members. We usually get together and have an hour presentation on the in and outs and the basics of the pension plans. But I do plan to meet with the new council members, give them the chance and have some small short presentation, speak to these issues. And as you mentioned, it may be more challenging to be able to schedule a day with the appointees, but we will try to do that as well. But in general, I think it's a very good idea, Trustee Jennings. Since this is a joint meeting, I think it will be perfectly fine to provide, as Councilmember Davis indicated, even if I speak to this to the individual council members, and I mentioned this during my presentation of the results of the actual evaluations, it's worth repeating. And since it's a joint meeting, we can speak to the implications from the evaluation standpoint. And then the city budget office can speak, I think, to some of the comments by Councilmember Davis made in terms of, as you were indicated, where the money is coming from in terms of, the general fund and everything else, what the implications, what they are. So I think that alone is going to take us a few hours. So I think a well-designed discussion on that portion of it and the implications to the board's decision for asset allocation is a worthwhile theme for the joint meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pena and Councilmember Davis. Any other comments or suggestions? I'll simply observe that in years past, we tended to have some pressing issue like pension obligation bonds that needed to be discussed. This year, I don't feel we do have such a pressing issue. And since we do, in fact, have so many new members, rookies, it's entirely appropriate that we sort of go back to Pension 101 and discuss that. The only thing I would add, and I think this is what Councilmember Davis was also alluding to, I think early on in my tenure, we did have a presentation from the city on the board here about a little bit about the city budget and the sources of funds for the city. So we should understand where the money comes from, and the city should understand as a stakeholder how the money is being spent on the pension plan. So covering both sides is an important aspect, given the time constraints we are likely to have, because as we know, once you dig into some of the actuarial details, the discussion can be unending.
Simplistic. We got to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I mean, like Councilmember Davis was saying, 6 years, it took her a year just to start getting it. I mean,
Actually, I'm impressed that she got it after just a year, so that's.
I am too.
That's
I'm
a
very
kind of
impressed.
accelerated
Councilmember
program.
Davis is a smart woman. So it takes time to really, and not everybody, the new council members are data people, So totally agree. Really, the budget piece, as far as I understand, and I do budget, is really just where people are paid out of. So, Federated.
I was referring probably more to where does tax revenue come into the city? How does the city generate money? Just so we have a general understanding, what are the economic factors that would affect the overall city budget? Not the details of how it's spent in different departments.
But that's not us. I don't see that as our education path. I see that more as Jim Shannon's, the budget director's
I
communication.
agree, it's not something we have any direct control over. I think it's a context that we should understand. So we don't operate without any context to how the money flows. So
us. Well, there always could be education that way, but the retirement is by your staffing. And so if you, like, I happen to do the capital budget for my department, and I am 100% capital funded. So that's construction and conveyance taxes and developer fees, because I'm split between those two funds. Police and fire predominantly general funded, unless they're being funded out of grants. So, and all that pays for your retirement portion of your payroll.
Okay. So understanding a little bit about how the different city budgets work and how that flows to different departments. And I think that would be a helpful understanding for us trustees. I know I would appreciate that personally. All right, I don't think there's any, it says discussion and action, but I don't think there's any actionable items on this agenda item, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe we do have enough time to move forward quickly to item 5B and still meet our 10 o'clock time certain deadline. So with that, I say the fateful words. Chiron, would you like to present?
Yes, good morning. Let me
Good morning, Mr. Hallmark.
let me share my screen here. All right. Just got to figure out where everything moved on my screen. So I'm here with Mike Schoening to present the final OPEB valuation results. We have both a report and a presentation. We're just going to go through the presentation. So you can see from our schedule, this is the last presentation in our series of actuarial presentations on the valuations that started last September. So we're at the end of the actuarial season, I guess. The OPEB funding is a very similar approach to the pension funding. There are a couple differences. We are primarily assessing the funded status and setting city contributions for the explicit subsidy portion of the retiree medical benefits. The member contributions are fixed in statute at 7.5% of pay. So we do not affect those member contributions, just the city contributions. And then the portion we call the implicit subsidy is paid on a pay-as-you-go basis by the city through their active member health premiums. So we are, for funding purposes, we set that aside and we're just focused on pre-funding the explicit subsidy. In December, we presented preliminary results. The key items have not changed much. Here on the left-hand side, we're showing the funded status. The bars represent the measure of the liability split between those receiving benefits in blue, those no longer working and entitled to future benefits in gold, and current employees in red. The green line is the assets, and we show the funded status dropping from 65% to 60% on the year. primarily, you can see it's driven by the decline in assets due to the investment returns. That was offset somewhat by a decline in the overall liabilities. So we'll talk through a little bit of what's going on there. In the end, on the right-hand side, we're showing the contributions, the member in purple in the bars and the city in gold. You can see that the total contribution is pretty level between 2023 and 2024. There's a slight increase in the city's contribution and a slight decrease in the member contributions. So that's because it's that fixed 7.5% of pay, and we have fewer members who are eligible for full retiree medical benefits. So with that, I'll turn it to Mike to run through the next few slides.
Right, and this slide shows the change in the explicit subsidy. If we look at the chart on the right, this is what happened between 2021 and 2022. And the overall unfunded liability increased by about $24 million. And it's primarily due to the gold bar you can see is the investment returns, because as we all know, last year was not a really good investment year. So that actually increased it by 62. And there was a slight change in assumptions at 9 million, and that's really due to the impact of increased inflation, which pulled the long-term medical trend rates up a little bit. But that was offset by favorable renewal experience in the medical premiums by about 36 million, and then the fact that contributions are set to try to pay down the implicit subsidy or the explicit UAL, so that produced about 11 billion. And if we look at what's happened over the last 5 years, you can kind of really see the volatility. But overall, over the 5-year period, the total unfunded has actually decreased by almost $80 million. But you can really see the kind of variation that been paying extra to try to bring down the unfunded liability, but we've had assumption changes, and those are primarily due to the big changes or to the reductions in the discount rate. And then you can see just the investment experience again varies from year to year. It's last year that we had a great year of very positive returns, but then gave them all back or gave a lot of them back last year. So you kind of really see the volatility of it. But overall, the plan has definitely been making improvements in that unfunded liability over time. The next chart really shows what's going on with membership, and it really compares. If you kind of look at the top, you can see the actives that are eligible for the full benefit continues to decrease as the members leave the plan. But overall, the population for the active has remained about stable. And the interesting thing is the actual members in pay status was actually unchanged between the 2 years. And that's really due to, while we had retirements, we had, unfortunately, a large number of beneficiary deaths that really offset that. But the key thing to really look at is on the bars on the left, on the right, is you really see what's driving things going forward is you've got that declining active population that's going to be eligible for benefits in the future. So you can see from 2017, it's gone down from almost 2,000 to just over 1,200. And then the big piece of the liability is that light green bar in the middle that's going from 1,800 to about 2,250. And those are the members that are Medicare eligible. And that's going to be the really growing piece over time. And that's really what will drive the long-term liability as the members retire, hit age 65 and are drawing Medicare benefits. And that's really where the cost is going to come from. And if we look at the next chart, this kind of shows the distribution a little bit differently of really splitting the active membership by those that are just eligible for the catastrophic disability benefits. They're participating in the VIVA versus those in the dark blue that are actually eligible for full benefits. And kind of the little diamond shows where those full eligibility numbers were last year. So you can really see the fact that anybody that's essentially under 30 been hired recently, they only have the catastrophic disability benefit. And as you kind of move forward, you see more and more people are retiring, and it's shifting more and more to the older ages as people finally retire and start to use the benefit. As opposed to the other chart shows how the retirees split by age, and you can see that's fairly consistent. But the overall message is you're continuing to see a decline in the number of those that are under age 65 for benefits, and the increase in those that are over age 65 as they basically age into the Medicare eligibility going forward. And then the last shows really the kind of long-term projection of what's going to happen over time. And this projects the actual benefit payments. And you can really see that the pre-Medicare piece is really small, and in about 30 years, it basically goes away. Everybody is retired and everybody that's left is over 65. The other thing is that basically after about 20 years, it actually starts to decline finally as it comes down. And the other piece that's just kind of interesting is to show you can't see anything for the catastrophic disability because it's such a minor benefit. You know, the expectation of it being used really doesn't even show up as a blip on the radar screen. And because payments stop at age 65, it's a very small group that could be eligible. And so far, nobody has actually accessed that benefit.
So this chart shows the actuarial liability in the gray, the assets in green, and if all assumptions are met, projects the liability and assets. You can see we are projected to reach full funding around 2038 if all of our assumptions are met. I think it's also interesting to note that we're projected to reach our peak liability in about 10 years. So we say this is an open plan because of the catastrophic disability benefits, but those are so much smaller than the other benefits. It's effectively a closed plan, and we will reach a peak in the liability. We're projecting it at about 10 years, and then it will start to decline. Now, that payment schedule that builds up the assets is really being driven in large part by the amortization schedules we set up. And so in 2017, we started actuarial funding for this plan, and we set up an amortization schedule for the UAL in 2017, which is these dark red bars. And then since then, we've added another layer to the amortization each year. And this slightly darker red here is the loss from this year, the 2022 loss. And the black line is the net payment that's expected to be made every year. So you can see once we pay off that 2017 UAL, there's a significant drop in net payments, and the net payments since then have been pretty balanced. So we're right around zero with our net experience over that time period. So that leads to the overall projection of contributions. You can see members are shown in purple here, and they're projected to decline as they retire. And then the city contributions are relatively level. We have an increase here as we phase in the recognition of the loss this year up to 21 million. But then over the next period, the length of the period, it only increases again to 23 million. Again, assuming all assumptions are met. And so we know there's going to be variation around that. The other thing to note here is the benefit payments going out of the trust have been right around where the total contributions are. But going forward, we're going to have more benefit payments going out of the trust than contributions coming in. And so that creates a negative cash flow. The investment team has been watching this for their liquidity management to make sure that they have the cash on hand to make those benefit payments that are in excess of the contributions. So,
hey, Bill, I have a question on the benefit payment.
Yeah.
Okay. So if people are on Medicare and moving, as it ages and people get onto Medicare, wouldn't the benefit payment out be less because Medicare is picking it?
Yeah, the benefit payment for the individual is less, but the majority of, as was shown on Mike's slide, the majority of the retirees receiving benefits
Mm-hmm.
are actually in that category. So that's that light green
Mm-hmm.
here. And so it is kind of interesting here, I think, that the pre-Medicare group, the numbers are declining, but with healthcare trend going up, it stays fairly flat in total dollar payments for the next 20 years before dropping off. But the Medicare eligible payments are what's driving the increase. And it's just because we're getting, as Mike was explaining, we're getting more and more people in that Medicare eligible group. And so the individual payments are smaller, but the number of people in that category is increasing. So those payments are significant.
But again, I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're saying. And so, and I guess what's locking my brain in grasping this is that the plan itself should be paying less because people are in Medicare. And that, you know, the government's picking up a big chunk of that. So the plan itself would be paying less, but
On an individual,
am I correct on that assumption?
yeah,
Right.
per individual. It's just that we have more individuals who are over 65 than under 65.
Okay, so if we didn't have that Medicare benefit, in essence, if you think of it on a, you know, just a qualitative thing, that number would be much higher.
Yes.
So it's just you got an aging population that are pulling more on benefits, and the population now are pretty much in that bracket. But if we didn't have Medicare, it would be even higher on the plan.
Yeah, so if you
Okay.
look at the current retirees,
Uh-huh.
here's the age 65 break. So
Yeah.
everyone to the right here is in Medicare and
Right.
everyone over here is not. There's
Uh-huh.
a lot more people in the Medicare group than in the pre-Medicare group.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
that's what's then translating to much more payments for Medicare eligible.
Okay.
So I think that was all we had to present. Take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hallmark. Are there any other questions from trustees? Or from members of the public? Okay, thank you. Looks like we continue to make steady progress.
Thank you. Do we need
Do we need a vote to accept?
I believe you do, yes.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to accept this final valuation?
So moved.
So we have a motion from trustee Linda. Is there a second? Anyone?
I was on mute. I second.
That's a second from Vice Chair Jennings. Any discussion from trustees? Any public comment? We will have a roll call vote. Trustee Jennings, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Kelleher?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the report is accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have enough time to move forward to item 6A. Oral update from the CEO, Mr. Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a short update. So being the month of January, please know that the W-2s that are issued by the employer to employees for pensions, we have to issue a 1099-R. And so we plan on issuing the 1099-Rs for all the retirees later this month. They will be mailed out to all the members towards the end of this month. Our quarterly edition of the newsletter for December 2022 should be in the mail out later this month as well. We are also in the final stage of recruitment process for the new senior analyst position that was actually approved for this calendar year, fiscal year budget. And lastly, the guarantee purchasing power, not to be confused with the COLA. The guarantee purchasing power for 2022 will be paid to those members that qualify for it, keeping their purchasing power since retirement to 75% in the month of February. And lastly, our offices obviously will be closed in the month, if the weekend of February 20th, to observe President's Day. That concludes my comments, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from trustees? The senior analyst position, is that an investment staff position or
Benefits.
benefit side? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And have we seen any applications for our open trustee seat?
We had one. I know also Trustee Linder reached out to me, and I was checking with staff about where we are in the status of that process with the city clerk. So yes, we do have one, and we need to go back to the city clerk and check where the status is of the applications to make sure that when are they closed and what the next steps are.
Mm-hmm. And when we do receive that application, is there an automated system to acknowledge that? Do we, at least thank people for submitting their application?
Linda, do you have any comments on that?
The clerk's office takes care of that.
Okay.
So the clerk's office will forward an automated that they receive
Yes.
to the process? Yes.
Yes.
There is some type of, okay.
Yes.
And any comment on the timeline? I mean, are we gonna, so we have one applicant, we're waiting, obviously, if there are others, at some point, does it close and we go?
It goes closes, and I unfortunately, I don't have the timeline right now. We need to check with the city clerk to find out where we are on that.
Mhm.
But Linda will be doing that shortly.
Roberto, doesn't this have to be an investor? This trustee, an outside investor?
I mean, it has to be a member of the public, correct?
But it does not require that they be, quote, an investor or any other particular background.
No, it does not. In fact,
Really?
I would prefer, we have so many outside members with investment background that I've been trying very hard to make sure that we can attract members of the public with a more diverse background than investments. If they have investment knowledge and background, more power to them, but we also want people with different experiences.
So the three, let's see, we have 7 members, 2 have to be city employees, 1 have to be a retiree. So the other 4, 1 has to be like Spencer, a resident.
No. The other 4, I believe the only requirement, I believe there's a requirement that you have to have a bachelor's degree and live within 50 miles of the city.
Correct.
But there's no
And there is a
specific
diverse list of educational and working experience that you can have to meet that requirement. Investments, Trustee Jennings, is one of them, but it's not the only one. It could be healthcare, it could be finance, it could be actuarial, it could be banking, it could be HR. It's a very diverse background that is requested.
Yeah. May I add something to that comment, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
So Roberto's exactly right. And he and I have had many discussions about trying to attract trustees with various backgrounds. Unfortunately, the way the application is written and the questions on the application form for a prospective trustee preclude people without investment knowledge, reasonable investment knowledge, from applying. And it's very discouraging if you don't have an investment background and you look at the application form. At some point we should revisit the application form and the questions on it. Whoever is in charge of that.
Yeah, I think
Very
that's
good
an
point.
excellent point.
Yeah, I agree.
Who
Is
is
that- Or is
who's
that
in
the
charge
city?
of that application form, and
No,
how can we go about changing it?
It is the city, trustee, Chair Horowitz, and Prabhu is absolutely right. We have spoken about it repeatedly. I actually started working on the basics of discussions on this issue with our counterpart from the city, Cheryl Parkman. Cheryl, as you all know, is on maternity leave. So I need to revisit that with OER because this is really is twofold. Is really responsibility or is on the city side of the equation, but I won't even attempt to touch the requirements, whether there are any kind of bargaining requirements or everything else. I suspect that there might be some, but I'm not really sure. So it could take a little while, but it's something that is on the agenda to work with OER this year.
Okay. Well, I would invite all trustees to advocate amongst their friends and colleagues to apply for this position. We know how much it is, how enjoyable it is, and how highly compensated it is. So with that in mind, we need to invite more applicants. And one last question.
One other thing, just to say, Carolyn might be able to take this back to Jennifer.
You mean the application form issue?
Just, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think clearly that's something that needs reform, but it sounds like the process might be, to do so might be a little cumbersome. So we might not get it in this round for in the next few months. The one applicant we have had, has that person already undergone whatever vetting process the city then applies in terms of, I believe you said conflicts of interest and 50-mile radius?
I'm not aware that that's the case, Mr. Chair, no.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions then about the, any other questions for our CEO on the update? Any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none. I see we still have a bit of time before our 10 o'clock time certain items. So let us go to item 6B, oral update from City Council Liaison, Council Member Davis.
Thank you, Chair. As I alluded to in our earlier discussion about our joint meeting, we have 4 new council members. We also have a new mayor, although he was the District 10 representative. So the new mayor has set up 5 transition committees. I thought this board might be interested to know what those committee focus areas are. They're homelessness, community safety, clean neighborhoods, downtown vibrancy, and planning and permitting. And the planning and permitting transition committee is the one that I am co-chairing. There's 1 or 2 council members with a member of the public co-chairing each of the committees. They're meeting 3 times before we have our priority setting sessions, and we just decided in rules yesterday to accept the mayor's suggestion to have 2 priority setting sessions, which will be held likely in February. We had requested, staff wanted them to be in a special meeting. We requested them to be as part of our regular meetings in February. So we will be starting to discuss priority setting and budget issues in February in advance of the March budget message that we expect from the mayor. And the last thing I wanted to make sure everybody knew, the 2 vacancies in District 8 and District 10, we have meetings scheduled next week for interviewing the possible appointees and making appointments. So we'll do District 8 on Tuesday and District 10 on Thursday. And I apologize for my dog barking in the background. Garbage day is a tough one at our house.
So are the council members, you're interviewing them next week, and then when are they, I don't know, elected?
So as soon as we make the appointments, they will be sworn in shortly after. So we anticipate that their first meeting will either be the 31st of January or the first meeting of February.
So So after the interview, do you vote on them or, so that Tuesday and Thursday?
That
That we
is the plan,
decided?
yes. Yeah,
Oh.
that is the plan.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
I think the pool looks pretty good, council member. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We had a lot of applicants for both positions, and they came from, I think, corners of the district that people who wouldn't normally run for office wouldn't necessarily think about running for office, given the difficulties of doing so, who want to serve. So that was an interesting development I didn't expect.
Anything further?
That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Any questions from trustees? Any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, and it is 10 to 10. I think we may not have enough time to deal with the next item, agenda item 6C.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I think it's a pretty straightforward item. You actually did in fact approve this last year, but we have to change the contract because we couldn't do it under the old name of Cortex. So I just assume, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just assume it would just take a couple of minutes.
Okay, with the interest of still taking a 5-minute break before the 10 o'clock hour.
Correct.
Agenda item 6C, and it sounds like you have gone at least 50% of the way of presenting the item already.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So you did approve this item late last year. After further, it was an amendment to the original contract with Cortex. By dealing with the new owner, as you all know, now is Volter. We couldn't use the old Cortex name. And so instead of requesting that you approve an amendment, we, Fiduciary Council actually drafted negotiated a new agreement. It is the same concept and request as last time. It's an amount not to exceed $30,000 for Cortex services. And so I would recommend that you approve the new agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So if it's not Cortex, what is the new name for this?
Well, it is called Cortex Consulting Inc., but there is an actual business name. I don't have the contract in front of me, but I believe the contract, the new agreement was actually attached to the agenda. Is that correct, Michelle? Can you go up a page just to make sure that I see it attached?
Yes, it is there.
It is attached to the item.
Yeah, so the name will be there, but I don't know, Harvey, do you have any other comments? It is the same concept. It's just that instead of an amendment to the old contract, this was a new agreement, that's all. And it's one for Federated, this 30,000, there's a separate one for police and fire, which they approved at the last meeting.
I see.
Yeah, the name changed and the corporate entity changed as well. So it's a brand new entity called Cortex Consulting instead of Cortex Advisory.
Okay.
And because the entity changed, we couldn't amend the contract with the old entity, which is now out of business.
Okay, understood. So are there any questions from trustees on this particular issue? Any questions from the public? Would someone care to formulate a motion to approve this contract?
I motion to approve the contract.
So we have a motion from Vice Chair Jennings. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That's a second from Trustee Kelleher. Thank you. Any further discussion on the matter from trustees? Any public comment? Hearing none, we will vote. Vice Chair Jennings.
Aye.
Trustee Kelleher.
Aye.
Trustee Linder.
Aye.
Trustee Avasti.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion is approved. And now, before we move forward to item 6D, I will take a 5-minute break and we will reconvene at the 10 o'clock hour to hear our time certain disability hearing. So we'll see you. Back from recess. It is now 10 o'clock and we have a time certain agenda item 1.1, which is a request for a service-connected disability retirement. And we will have the disability hearing. Ms. Oliva, are you present and will you present yourself?
Chair Horowitz, I was just trying to see if Member Oliva was present. Staff just came by the office to let me know. We reached out to her last week. She did agree to the time certain at 10 o'clock. We always make the point of following up the day before the meeting. We reached out to her yesterday, did not hear from her. We reached out this morning, we haven't heard back from her. That doesn't mean she will not be coming through in the next minute or two, but I just wanted to let you know why she's not available yet. I'm hoping she shows up in the next couple of minutes, but I just wanted to kind of give you that background.
Okay, thank you. Well, insofar as the applicant is not present, let us proceed with the rest of our agenda in the interest of time efficiency. So I believe we're up to item 6D, 6E, where are we? So I believe 6D is the item that we agreed to defer to next month. And so we aren't on to item 6E, which is discussion and action on adoption of procedures for resolving ADA requests pursuant to AB 2449. And I believe Council Liederman will present to us on this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. When the legislature passed a bill, AB 2449, this past session that created some rather convoluted teleconferencing options that are pretty well unworkable. They also included in that bill a recognition of improved public agency access to those subject to the Americans with Disability Act, ADA. And this is pretty much a ministerial responsibility now. It requires, as you see from the proposed policy and resolution, it essentially requires us to post on our agendas access information for those with disabilities who want to attend our meetings. As I say, it's pretty ministerial. This isn't something we have any discretion to do, but it does. The new law does require us to pass to take action to adopt a resolution of this kind. It's effective as of January, and so essentially what this will do will be to designate someone at the Office of Retirement Services to take inquiries from those with disabilities who have reasonable requests for access to our board meetings and committee meetings, and also to require us to publish that information at the top of each of our agendas. And we'll work with staff to make sure that we get that language correct. So, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions, but it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution and policy that are attached as exhibits to the agenda item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council Liederman. Are there any questions from trustees? Or any comments from the public on this accommodation policy? And if there are none, would someone like to formulate a motion to accept these policies and procedures?
I move that we accept the policies and procedures as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Linder. That's a motion from Trustee Linder. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
That's a second from Vice Chair Jennings. Any further discussion on the motion? Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll have a vote. Vice Chair Jennings?
Aye.
Trustee Kelleher?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the motion is passed. And I believe now with item, well, is Ms. Oliva present yet?
Not aware that she is yet, Chair Horowitz.
Okay, then we will proceed with the agenda, item 6F, which I believe we again turn to our Council Liederman. So, Council Liederman, if you will be so kind as to guide us.
Well, I was on mute, and I was actually quite articulate. I'm sorry.
That's like my singing in the shower. I finally hit the high notes. But
I won't try that today. The governor's proclamation, a declaration of emergency, continues in effect. And you see the materials that we've given you to substantiate that. It continues in effect till the end of February, and then allows us, with the other findings by the city council and local health officials who still recommend social distancing, mask wearing, and other means to reduce the dangers of exposure to COVID and other diseases. We have the opportunity again to adopt for the next 30 days the ability to meet under the abbreviated teleconference provisions of AB 361. So At this time, Mr. Chairman, it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to make the findings stated in the materials and to authorize the board to meet for the next 30 days in closed session. I'm sorry, excuse me, in open session and closed session, but under the teleconference rules of AB 361.
Great, thank you. And is there such a motion to accept these findings and to continue to meet under the auspices of AB 361?
So moved.
So we have a motion from trustee Linder. Is there a second?
I second it.
We have a second from Vice Chair Jennings. Any discussion by trustees? Any public comment? Vice Chair Jennings, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Kelleher?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion passes. We will continue to meet under AB 361.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this 30-day extension will allow us, will carry us through the February 16th board meeting. And if we adopt the same motion at the February 16th board meeting, that will carry us to the March 16th board meeting, which may be the last time we are able to utilize those abbreviated teleconference rules. So we should be able to at least get the next, before the governor's declaration expires, we'll be able to have the next two meetings of the board subject to these teleconference provisions. After that, I'm not sure what's going to happen. There have been increased COVID cases up and down the state, especially in Southern California. So we'll just watch it and we'll try to keep you advised as things develop at the state and local level.
Great, thank you. We certainly look forward to those updates. All right, I believe it's time to move forward to committee reports. The investment committee, Chair Chandra is not with us, but I believe Vice Chair, which is a new appointment for Trustee Kelleher, can report on our last IC meeting. Which consisted largely of reviewing the Crosslink Ventures investment that was
Yes.
heard earlier.
It was, so we reviewed that and so I guess we need to
Do we need to actually accept
file
the minutes? Yeah.
No. We need to receive and file the minutes. So do we need to do it? Do we need to vote on that?
No, by action of the chair, they can be received and filed.
All right. Well, we'll receive and file them.
Okay, thank you.
The chair of the board.
Oh, that chair. We will receive and file them. Thank you.
There you go.
Moving forward to the governance committee. This is chaired by Vice Chair Jennings. It looks like the last meeting was a special meeting. The next meeting is a special meeting.
Yeah.
So, and nothing to report then, I assume, and we can receive and file the minutes.
Yes, please.
And then the audit committee, also the last meeting was a special, next meeting is a special. So if there is anything to report.
Nothing to report, Chair.
Very good, then we will receive and file the minutes for the audit committee. Moving forward to the disability committee. The oral update from the disability committee. Is there someone who wishes to give an oral update?
The committee basically dealt with AB 361 in that last meeting.
Okay. All right, and it looks like we do not need to receive and file minutes from that meeting,
Apparently not.
but if we did, we would receive and file them.
Right.
Okay, and then finally, the Joint Personnel Committee. Again, Vice Chair, I believe Trustee Chandra is the vice chair of this committee.
Correct. He's the vice chair. Obviously, he's not at your meeting this morning, so I don't know if either yourself, Mr. Chair, or Vice Chair Jennings would like to provide an update.
I will take a stab at it. We reviewed the. We're working on a number of things in parallel. One is we're looking at the pay grade ranges for various staff members. That's the investment staff, the CEO, and the CIO. And we reviewed the pay ranges for the CEO and investment staff at the last meeting. And we also had some further discussion on an incentive bonus plan. And a bonus plan would pay, again, the investment staff and the CEO, in addition to the pay ranges, according to some formula based on performance. No final positions were taken on the nature of the incentive plan, but discussions continue apace. So with that, if there are any questions, we can hear them now, or any comments. But if not, we will receive and file the minutes. And this Joint Personnel Committee is meeting monthly at this point. So next meeting is February 9th. Let me ask again if Member Oliva is present for our disability hearing.
Not that I'm aware of, not yet, as far as I know.
Okay, well, we're rapidly moving towards the close of the meeting. Item 8, there you'll have the Cortex report to review if there are any trainings and seminars you wish to attend. And the Calipers General Assembly is coming up in early March. I don't know if you want to make any comment on that, Mr. Pena?
The General Assembly, we still are waiting for the agenda, but it is a worthwhile 3 days meeting. It is just a drive away here in Monterrey, about an hour and a half or less from San Jose. And I strongly recommend attendance to any of you who has the time to attend this meeting, not only because the topics of discussions are always worthwhile, but I think, of course, I'm not a trustee, but I think that one of the big help on these meetings is that you actually get to know and to meet your peers across the state and can compare notes about plans and about the board business. So I think you can learn as much, not only from the items of discussion, but also from actually reaching out and meeting your peers across the state. So I strongly recommend attendance to the assembly, which actually starts on an afternoon of Sunday, March 4th through the noontime on Tuesday, March 7th.
And is there a deadline by which we have to sign up in order to, I don't know, get the preferred hotel rate or whatever is organized by the?
We need to check on that. I'm planning on reaching out to the Calipers after the meeting today and check not only about that, but also about the agenda so we can make it available. But it's usually, very soon, sometime next month. So we should really be, if you really would like to attend, you should let us know as soon as possible. Thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you. All right, any questions from trustees? Are there any proposed agenda items? And then hearing none, then we are in adjournment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to deal with the disability item?
Well, how shall we've never had this situation before. How do we deal with the disability item? Do we defer it to another meeting? Do we vote on it in the absence of the applicant being here to present themselves? What is the appropriate procedure?
Well, I think we should put on the record the conversations and notices that were given by staff to the member's acknowledgement that the matter would be heard today. And then it's really up to whether the committee wants its recommendation to go forward at this time and have the board consider it, or whether the board wants to put the matter over. But I think we should put on the record the notice that was given to the member and the member's acknowledgement of this meeting. I don't have any problem from a fiduciary standpoint with proceeding in the absence of the member who apparently got full and fair notice of this hearing and has not contacted anyone today to ask that it be put over. But that would be at the board's desire as to whether you want to proceed today or not, or afford a month delay and take it up next month. Staff may also have some views on that as well, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So I think we then face a decision. Do we defer this item at our discretion to next month or some other future month? Or do we hear the item and vote on it in the absence of the applicant being here to present their case?
I would like to hear from staff, just to
Okay.
understand if this is an extraordinary, response. I mean, is this something unusual from the person? Is this the typical response from the person? Just trying to understand if it's beneficial to push this out a month, and if we might have a similar response in the next month.
Fair question, Vice Chair Jennings. I'm going to speak to it, and then I'll invite staff to comment if I'm either mistaken or they like to add something to it. I was told this morning that when we dealt with this case at the Disability Committee session, the member did agree the week before to attend the meeting and did not respond to attend by the staff at that time, the day before the meeting and the morning of the meeting. But she did show up. She did call in at a due time for the meeting, so she was available. So we were hoping today was going to be the same situation, but she has not. So I just assume something must have happened to the member. Obviously, that's just I'm speculating. I don't know what's going on. I think we can, we certainly, it's on the record that we did reach out to the member and she did agree to a time certain for today at 10 a.m. And again, I will, recommend to your board to defer the item to the next possible time that will be beneficial for both the boards and the member to listen to this matter. With that said, I'll let staff, if I either misspoke or they want to add any other comments, I invite staff to comment at this time. Thank you.
Are there any further comments from staff then on this matter?
Yeah, this is Sandra Castellano, the benefits manager. I don't have anything to add. I think Roberto reflected appropriately. We did have some initial challenges at the committee meeting, and we're hoping that, like Roberto said, that she would show up today, but it doesn't look like that's the case.
Right. Trustees, do you have any other questions or comments?
I just have one more follow-up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone call her this morning?
I believe we did reach out. Stacy, are you
Yes.
there?
Yeah, I'm here. I called her this morning. I left a message. I called her again a few moments ago and I left a message. I've sent her 3 emails with the Zoom information. So, this is what we always do before meetings. I do take responsibility for their attendance and try to take every step possible to assure that they're going to attend. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. It seems you have made every reasonable effort and beyond to contact this person. Any other questions from trustees? So would anyone like to formulate a motion either to continue to hear and resolve the matter now, or to defer to a future time.
This is trustee Kelleher. I would motion that we defer this to a future time and try and give the applicant a chance to present her case.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, a motion from trustee Kelleher, a second from trustee Linder to defer this to a future time. Is there any further discussion from trustees or any further public comment? So hearing none, we will vote. Again, a motion to defer this item, agenda item 1.1, the disability hearing. Vice Chair Jennings, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Kelleher?
Aye.
Trustee Linder?
Aye.
Trustee Avasti?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the agenda item will be reheard in the future at such time as seems appropriate. So with that done, are there any other proposed agenda items for future agendas?
I do know, Mr. Chair, but I do want to publicly apologize to Disability Council and Dr. Daz, right? They made the same available. Obviously, we were not able to have the meeting today with the applicant, so apologies for that. Thank you.
Yes, let me echo that from the chair. We apologize for consuming their time unnecessarily. So, all right, then, if there are no other issues before us, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all.